So again, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to have you here on a fine Friday afternoon. This is your updates webinar. It's an overview for the campus plan updates, the CCG updates. To give you a quick rundown of what we'll be doing in the next probably about half an hour, I don't think it'll take much longer than that. I just want to go over sort of what's new in the campus plan updates for 2018. The short answer on that is, quite frankly, not much. I want to go a bit over the purpose and function. There are some old hands on this call, and old hands who will have done these since the 2012 inception of the project, and also some folks who are fairly new. And I want to make sure we have an overview of the reason why these are done. I want to go a bit into detail about the what, the process, the how do we get these reports done, both on the strategy survey, which is sort of an online overview, and then that narrative report, that deeper dive into your work. We'll talk briefly about submitting your update, and then also how, if you have any questions, you'll be able to get help. So quickly, what's new for 2018? As I noted, there's not much. The strategy survey has been revised. There's a few new elements in there, largely related to high-impact practices. As some of you may know, we're beginning a process of looking at some of the academic high-impact practices, and we are interested in a little bit more detail, mostly around the issues of contact folks. We want to know who's sort of the contact person for those groups. There's a few elements that have come off of the survey as well. We eliminated a handful of items just because we were no longer everyone was completing them and doing them. And this may be actually the last year for a few more of those elements. But anyway, so the strategy survey is out there. It is slightly revised, but it should seem familiar to those of you who filled it out. We have pushed the due date for campus plans back. Last year, if you were aware, it was August 17th. We moved it up, in part so that we would close the reporting out before the campus plan, before the next term. I had some folks suggest that we needed to have a slightly longer time to allow for more time on campus to have the review done by folks on campus. So that's just sort of an adjustment. We didn't want to push it again. We don't want to push it too far back into the next term, or it becomes confused with what is happening in that year, and I want to make sure we remember that this is for the 2017-2018 academic year. There's a much more flexible reporting format, which I'll get to in a bit, but that's, again, at your request. There's been some folks who really like the tabular format. There's some folks who really like the new matrix format. There's some folks who really don't like formats, and so we're going to respect all of those and just be flexible. And then the last thing is, and I'll go over this in more depth later, but we are asking for a 90-day update on your momentum plans, momentum year plans. So, but before we start talking about the what, I want to talk about the why. So why do we bother? Why do we report on this? And this has two sort of purposes. And I've heard feedback on both of these that are fairly give me a sense that this is something we should continue to do. For the first part, for the system office, this is a really important way for us to see what's going on campus. In fact, it's in many ways the best way for us to learn about what your priorities are and what your work is on campus. We don't have, Heather Collins and I in our team have been diligently doing the rounds on campus, and we learn a tremendous amount by being on campus, but absent actually visiting every campus multiple times during the year, the best opportunity for us to learn about the scope of the work that we have underway and the nuances of it is through these campus plans. So it's an invaluable resource for the system office. But also for institutions, it's an opportunity for you to look at your work, to change the directions you're going, and also to use these documents on your campus to share out the work you do with all of your constituents, internal and external, and to really frame the work you do around student success. We've been doing these since 2012. They're fairly established documents now. I will say this: after having read these for several years, I do have they do give you a really strong sense of how you all approach the work of student success on your campus. So that leads into that next question: is does anyone really use these things? Are these things actually useful and valuable? And I will say, I mean, not just because I do them, but absolutely yes. These are read at the system office. I use them. We use them regularly to sort of review what work is being done on campus. We use them to identify places where institutions may have really put themselves out and led the way on this work, and we can use that response to help other campuses that are struggling with that same work. They are very helpful for us when we get policymakers' inquiries, we get legislative inquiries, we get governor's office inquiries. They're extremely helpful for us to be able to shape and frame this response. Importantly, one of the ways they got used last year and a little bit the year before is when they're looking for board spotlights, and we have a number of board spotlights that come through academic affairs. This is our first stop. We use this as a way to find out where is innovation happening, and what should we promote up before the board. And this is a really great way to make your case about the work you do. Importantly, these are our most comprehensive public documents. In the last 3 years, we've been seeing a lot more traffic through the CCG website towards these plans, and actually down towards into campus plans. So we're seeing, and these are traffic coming from other institutions. And when I'm speaking with peers outside of the region, outside of the state rather, what I'm hearing is that this is sort of their first stop in terms of what is Georgia doing. Georgia is getting a reputation nationally as an innovator in a range of areas around student success. Other states are looking at us, and this is our documentation to say what we're doing. So these are really useful documents, and they are documents that are used. And I want to assure you of both of those facts, because I think we have sometimes failed to recognize that these are work. There's a lot of work that goes on behind these. We understand that. We appreciate the work that is put into these, and we want you to understand and be assured that when these leave your campus, they are something that we find tremendous value in. So what is the process? So the update process in 2017 will look very similar to previous years. We have kept this process largely unchanged. There are two parts to the update. Most folks think of the campus plan updates as simply the narrative report. That's report that will get turned into us in September. But and actually more critical part, or not more critical, but an equally critical part is that strategy survey. It's completed online. We consolidated. It's a way. We do not make this public. It's not intended as an accountability tool. It is really truly this broad scope of things that we use to identify what is going on campuses. And then there's that narrative report, which is probably the more familiar thing. It's the item that is posted online. You can see it has largely, again, unchanged. 2 of the 3 sections are similar to what was done in the past. The first one is identical to what you've done in the past. The summary of activities can be the same or can be slightly different depending upon your preference. And then we do have that new element, the 90-day update for the momentum year. So here's our timeline. April 30th, the instructions went out and the strategy survey is available. I will acknowledge this was a little later than we've been in past years. In part, that has to do with some of the work that's been going on around the momentum year. We wanted to make sure that we were able to honor some of the work that was being done on campuses and have the implementation plans already out to you, so we weren't overlapping the two. The campus today, the web updates webinar. This is sort of the beginning of the high season for CCG updates. There is an optional draft review. A handful of campuses have in the past taken advantage of this. If you are interested, just send your plan through the submit button by June 25th. We will take a look at it and send you feedback. A few campuses have done this because they're either working on new projects or they want some feedback, but the feedback again will be very much targeted on the activities, not the format of the report. I will give you feedback on the format of the report, but what I'm most interested in doing is looking at how your work is going forward and if there are ways that you can inflect that work. We'll also, as we have in years past, send out, we call it validated data. It's the CCG data set. This comes out of the Research Policy Analysis Unit at USG. It comes out of the warehouse. It does not include the full suite of data because, of course, there's some data we will not have yet by the June 25th, but it is a pretty comprehensive set of data. Some of you may just use that to review what you have in your data warehouse. For some of you, this is a tool that you can use to build out the remaining of your report. So that will come out to you on the 25th in the same format. It should almost be, I believe we're adding a few elements to that related to the momentum year ideas of English and math in the first year. But for the most part, that will be, again, that will all be out there, fairly familiar to y'all if you've seen it before. If you haven't, you're welcome to contact me. Strategy survey is going to close on the 16th, and that's also when we will get our reviews back to you if you've submitted a review on June 25th. Strategy survey, we'll go over that in a bit, but it does require a login, so there is a process to that. You can't just simply jump into it at the very last minute. The final reports are due September 7th. I don't think I have to note this too much, but I will allow that we have been fairly generous with extensions on campuses that need it, but I would like you to shoot for the 7th, because the further back you push it, the harder it is to get that work done. I mean, you do begin to get into the term cycle. And then we do submit it on December 1st to the governor. We provide, in addition to the submission on December 1st, sometime during the first 2 weeks of December, we provide a formal update to the governor's office, to the education policy lead there, on what is in the update. So this is a document that we both present formally in a document form, but also we present this to them as a briefing. So the strategy survey, again, slightly revised from 2017. It will seek details on your activities. There's some questions that have been eliminated. They've grouped the questions around activity areas. It is intended, and it's important to note, it is intended as a way to provide you a comprehensive view of the work that's underway on your campus. So the strategy survey will allow you to answer yes to all sort of a host of detailed questions that may not be reported in your campus plan. So your narrative report, rather. It may not be reported in your narrative report. You may not be reporting on all the work you're doing, but it does tell us that it's here, that we have this on hand. And so some of the questions, for instance, may ask about projects that are not really things you're going to put a narrative report together, but it still allows us to see that you have that work going on campus, and it gives us a sense of where the work is progressing. The survey may require multiple individuals. It asks questions that may stretch across student affairs and academic affairs even. It may have different individuals leading different activities, and that's perfectly fine. You'll have a login that is linked to your institution. There is a single point of contact for that, and but anybody can have those credentials on campus. And again, just by July 16th, if you can just get that completed. So the survey is linked here. It's at Survey 2018. Tried to keep it simple on the CCG website. If you want to preview it, it's 2018-survey-preview because we don't want to keep that too simple, obviously. An email was sent out asking for your primary CCG point of contact. Several of you have already responded. We've sent those out. You'll get, and the reason this works this way is if it doesn't go to a single point of contact and you forget your credential, there's no way to ask for the credential to be refreshed, to get a new password. And that is the reason for that login. You'll get a username and a password. It allows you essentially, the only thing you can really do is the survey. It should actually link to your institution, so you shouldn't actually have to do too much at the who are you stage. Again, an email was sent out asking for it. If you haven't gotten it, feel free to email me, and I will send it to whoever is that CCG point of contact. It's a worthy and honorable position to host on a campus. This is sort of what it looks like. These are gonna. So you've got the username and password. You'll also have to do a CAPTCHA. So when you go to the website, you can either go to completegeorgia.org user, or if you go right to that survey website and you're not logged in, it will kick you over here, ask you for a username and password. Your username and password get entered in. They're fairly simple. They don't use a lot of funny characters. You'll have to do a math question. In the one example on the screen, it is 9 plus 1. You would answer 10, and then you log in. When you log in, you can see you would go over, it'll log you into a page that will look somewhat like what's on the right-hand side with a whole list of questions. They're generally yes, no's, or select items. There's some text you might have to pull in. If you answer yes to some, they may ask you for follow-up. But that is what the strategy survey looks like. Now, I will say this. Don't panic. The strategy survey is not complicated. I actually didn't have anyone complain about it last year, but I just want you to know that if you do get to a point where you are lost on it, you can feel free to email me. I am the administrator of the survey as well, which should both assure you that you can get direct support, and also assure you that it can't be all that complicated if I'm the one who's administering it. Trust me that everyone in the past has managed to get this done. And this tool, I will say this, I go back to this every time, and my colleagues here will acknowledge this. when they ask me a question, who's doing X at a campus, and I remember I've got this survey, and I pull it up and I pull this data out, I am just tickled that I can actually go back and say, I can find myself, I can tell the board we've got 13 campuses that are engaged in this activity. So I really, again, I appreciate the effort y'all put in on this and understand that this is a really valuable tool for us. I will also, at this point, I will also make it clear, I can make the survey results available to you all. I just don't make those public because I don't think that this is set up in such a way that we want that to be done that way. But I'm happy to share with anybody who is that primary point of contact. I'm happy to share last year's results. They're set up in a table format across several tabs of spreadsheets. I'm happy to share that out with anybody on the institution, at an institution who wants to see who else is doing what. And again, I'll do the same for you for this year once all the survey results are in and sorted. So the narrative report, this is actually what most folks, this is what most folks sort of both think about with respect to the CCG updates, and also this is where I think much of the work gets placed. So it has 3 sections. The first section is simply this institutional mission and student body profile. This is how you tell us who you are and what you do. It helps us understand, it helps to make sense of why you're focusing on the work you're doing. Again, because the narrative report, the strategies you're focused on are supposed to be high impact and high priority. Those priorities and that impact should be clear from who your student body is. It helps to connect the work you're doing to the students you serve and how you view yourself. You can have appendices that are linked in the back, or you can place some data in the front. Either one is fine. If you find yourself having a very data-heavy, table-heavy institutional mission student body profile, I would suggest placing it in the appendix. Most of y'all will have had this from years past, and you'll need to simply update it, because I will say this has been a great tool also to have in order to hand off to particularly some of our outside partners as we've moved into this strong start to finish work and the momentum year work, so that they can understand who our campuses see themselves as. So the meat of the matter, the narrative overview section 2, is really where you tell us what you've done and how it's gone. And this is actually, yeah, I knew there was going to be an error in there. This is for 20, we're going to correct this right now. There we go. For 2017, 2018. Format is largely the same as last year. The slide was actually the same as last year. The format is largely the same as last year, if you want it to be. Table is gone. You can follow any format you like. So there's no limits on strategies. The page limits have returned. What we're looking for, by and large, in this section is this. We want you to tell us what you're working on, why it's important, what the activities you've undertaken, what progress you're making, what have you learned. Now, you can do this all in one sort of large narrative report. You can section these out. You can actually use the previous model from last year. It does not matter to me. You can use the very first model you use. What we're looking for really is that you're meeting this need in a way that covers the answer. And again, we're looking at your top priority completion work, your highest impact, highest priority work. In a few years, I guess, as context for those of you who are new to this, we had at one point limited it to 5 priority areas. That was felt to be restrictive for some campuses, and other campuses were saying, like, we have 3 we really think are important. We'd rather combine all these into one report rather than have a jumble. And so that's where we've come to. And again, so long as your report comes in under the 10-page limit, give or take, you can have appendices. Those don't count. Report as fully as you can on this, so that we understand the strategy, why it's important to your campuses, what you've done in the past year. And that's actually sort of the what have you done, are you making progress, and what have you learned. I would like each of those strategies to be in its own element so they're somewhat discrete. That helps us to pull out reporting and to also share out. If that isn't functional, and I know there's one campus that has done a really good job of doing a comprehensive sort of reporting structure, and I'm fine also with that. But again, I think it's easier for you to organize your work and us to see your work if it's somewhat segregated out by how these things are organized. Now, again, as you go through the momentum year, and we are pulling these into sort of a more comprehensive model, I understand that your 15 to finish work and your program maps work and your advising work actually all hangs together, and so those may all get reported within one section. So finally, the narrative report section is the third section we have. This is new. This actually replaces the observation section that we did last year, the 5-year observation section. So looking for an update on the 90-day next steps for your momentum plan. So everybody knows we've already gone through, we've sent out all the feedback for your momentum, your implementation plans. And on that, on those momentum year plans, this is an example from element 2E, program of study. There was a question, what will you do in the next 90 days? So we want to know sort of where are you with that? It's not, I guess I should say, it's not a graded report. We're not going to give you an A, B, C, D, E, or A, B, C, D, F. We want to know where you stand. This is important for us because this is sort of where you got at the end of that academic, at the end of this current term. You should have been about to the end of that. It also lets us know going into the fall, where will you be and how are you prepared. Something else that may be embedded in this, which you may want to think about, is where are you with respect to rolling in to implementing the co-rec remediation. Now, importantly, if your institution is facing challenges with that you think is going to slow that down, you might want to let us know ahead of time because this will not come to us unless you turn this in early until after the term is started. But that's what the 90-day update is, and I know there was some confusion about what we meant 90 days from when, and it isn't really that next steps element that we asked you about in the momentum year implementation plans, what we do in the next 90 days. If you do not have access to or have not seen the implementation plans, please feel free to contact me. I can get you access to, I can get you at least to the person who would have that information for you. So, how do you submit this? You can submit this, oh, I'll point out there's an optional review. Submitting is this, if you want to, you can submit it for an optional review. We'll give you focused feedback around the activity. Last year, only a few campuses did this. We do an internal and limited external peer review of this. We hand it around to folks in the building as well as folks who have specialty in areas. So if your campus comes in and you're focused on advising, we'll find sort of institutions with strength on the advising, particularly advising model that you've got, to sort of take a look and see if this is all going to hang together, if there's suggestions that can be made back. That's the benefit of this. If you're concerned about the structure of your report, that is maybe just a phone call to me or an email to me. It may not really, or you can submit it, but again, I don't really want to have I don't want the review to be focused on the way the structure or nature of your report. I want this to really be looking at what are you doing, if that makes any sense. So submitting the report updates, it's the same process as years past, simply a different link. You're going to submit it through completega.org/submit2018. We need it as a Microsoft Word file. Please don't submit it as a PDF. It should be, so if you submit it from the President's office, that simply means that the person who's submitting it is in the President's office. There'll be an email. There's an email line on the submit page that should be somebody who is associated, either the President or somebody associated with the President's office. If it comes in from an email, it's the same way. It comes to ccg@usg.edu. That email actually goes to 4 of us, so it will certainly be captured. They're again due on September 7th. If you submit your update for review in the same way you submit the update for final delivery to the USG. The difference obviously would be that if you're submitting it for review, I actually don't need it to come through the President's office. And the reason we do this from the President's office, and I guess I should be clear on this, is not because we don't trust anyone, but because we want to make sure that when I pull a document and send it to the Governor's office, it is something that it is truly your final document, and I'm not dealing with a draft. This is less of a problem now that we don't have a full suite of drafts floating around the system office. But it is something that I want to make sure that when I submit something to the Governor's office and make it public, that this is indeed the work that you intended for us to make public. So if you need help, and again, this is there are resources available on the Complete Georgia website. There will be more of them as we go through, a few more of them as we go through, but this is at Plans 2018. You will find the instructions that we sent out. I will note, last year someone pointed out to me that we were capping the campus plans at 10 pages and our instructions were 8 pages long. We actually pared in response to that, the campus plans are now down to 2 pages, 3 pages. But the instructions are on the website. Also, the strategy survey, a link to that survey is there, as well as a link to the preview is there. The sort of narrative overview is embedded in that page. There's a submission link on there, and eventually, very soon, this presentation will be on there. Again, I will hope to get this. I will try to get this up before 11 p.m. so that those of you who had planned viewing parties are able to do so. So a change from years past, and largely due to the fact that they weren't being all that heavily used. We don't have a liaison anymore. If that worries you, if you really feel you need to have somebody as a campus who has a concierge contact, please contact me, and I will assign somebody. I will serve as a matchmaker for you. But by and large, campuses have felt free to contact whoever they know at system office, and that usually flows back to whoever has to know. So if you're just more comfortable with the liaisons, we can easily establish that for your campus, and that's easily done and not a difficult thing. But if you need help, your primary contact will be me. And if it's a question that involves some other detail, particularly around data, we may loop you over to Lori Haygood in the research policy analysis group to understand where that goes. So at this point, if you have questions, post them in the chat box. I can unmute. Well, I say this. I may not be able to unmute all. I actually can't unmute all from this interface. So please post any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll take them. I always happily take questions about these after the fact. We're coming up on 11:30, which will give us exactly half an hour, which was my target for this. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box other than celebrations that I can be heard. So with that, let me say this. I want to thank you again. I really want to make sure that you know how much this work that you work on means to us. It's a very big deal to get this out to the public and to our policymaker stakeholders. Georgia's ability to work as a system and move as a system and coordinate things as a system is really due to the fact that we can actually reach out and find out what we're doing. We have a depth of ability and knowledge, and it comes down to the fact that y'all have done such a great job on both reporting and also being frank and open about what you've learned and what you struggle with. So again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your work on this. And if there's anything over the course of the summer as you go through these plans and the reporting that you have questions about, concerns about, or would like to see improved, please feel free to reach out directly to me. You can contact me by email or by phone and let me know. So with that, I'll thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your Friday afternoon. Thanks so much.